Hi guys, this is your streamer Carlos. On today's video, I'm going to give you my review of X-Men 97 Episode 8. Season 1 Episode 8. Episode 8. The rise of a new sentinel king, a new sentinel king, and the fight for Earth X Part 1. So with that being said, guys, here we go. I really love this episode. Just like I said in my intro, this is a three-part episode arc. A three-part episode season finale. Three episode arc. So, like I said, so with that being said, guys, here we go. First of all, I really enjoyed this episode because we finally find out what has happened to Nathan. Nathan Scott Charles Summer, or Nathan Scott Summers, or Nathan Charles Summers, Nathan Scott Summers. So here we go. And like I said in episode 3, little baby Nathan was forced to leave his mom, clone Jane, Melanie, and he had to go with Bishop, the member that can travel through time to cure him from the virus that Mr. Sinister gave to poor little baby Nathan. Well, apparently, Cable. Yes, Cable, the futuristic mercenary is actually Nathan. Scott Summers. Nathan Charles Scott Summers. Yes, I said it, guys. Cable is Cyclops and Jean's son. From the future. Again, from the future. And when he came to present Earth to basically confront the reality of the loss of his biological mother, meaning Melanie, aka Jean's clone, and obviously the murder or the assassin of Jean's clone, Melanie, is of course Bastion and his Sentinel army, Sentinel henchmen, or Sentinel army that destroyed Kenosha. And basically to tie this with a bow and to tie this whole situation in a bow, Cable came comes back to the present day Earth, and he basically is out for revenge for the murder of his mom, and he wants Bastion's head for it. But here's the interesting part. Instead of a happy son that Cable should be, to see his father, Cyclops, he's not that happy. He's not that excited, and therefore he's not that excited either about the real Jean, which makes Jean kind of his mother, biological mother, in a weird and strange and a funny way, but not really, because Melanie was Cable's biological mother, because Melanie gave birth to him. But anyway, so there's some tension between father and son, but they have a common goal, meaning the team, the X-Man, and Cable have a common objective, or a common mission to complete and basically finish, and that is to disrupt and destroy or eliminate Bastion and his horde. Yes, I said horde of sentinels, and his new zombie sentinel host like Bolivar Trask, which at this time Bolivar Trask is still a zombie sentinel, but he's entombed. He's entombed because Beast has him entombed in his laboratory to see how Bolivar Trask basically became a vessel, or a zombie sentinel. Then, but that's not all. Then, after all of this, after the situation with Cyclops and his son Cable / Nathan Charles Scott Summers / with Jean again. All three of them have the common goal with the rest of the team, with the rest of the X-Men, to basically destroy Bastion and stop him from destroying Earth. And the one with the most information about Bastion is of course Cable. And Cable gives Cyclops, his father, and Jean and the rest of the team information about Bastion. That Bastion is a cybernetic hybrid, a cybernetic sentinel hybrid that that was created by the Mother Sentinel machine, the one that I talked about in my first review of the series, basically in episode 1. So my review of episode 1. So basically, in a nutshell, guys, Cable told the team and his father and Jean that Cable was the offspring, that Bastion was the offspring of the King Sentinel machine, and thanks to that machine, we have Bastion. Now Cable tells his dad and the rest of the team that Bastion can be destroyed, but it will take a team effort, a 2-team effort, and a mutant miracle, and that is why, so the team splits up. So the team splits up into two teams. The first, well, not into two. It will take a team effort. That's what I meant to say. It will take a team effort. And then, obviously, then we have a little bit. Let's go back a little bit. After that, we have Rogue in a sleeping beauty or a sleeping beauty like state. Yes, a sleeping beauty's like state of a coma, and she's knocked out, because of the powers, what she did, like how she accidentally became an assassin or murderer. Apparently, when she killed that security guard in that very secretive compound where she thought that Henry Heydrich was hiding. The way that Rogue killed that security guard really affected her. Not only emotionally, but obviously physically. So that drainage of energy and power that she accidentally used to kill that security guard, basically has left her in a sleeping beauty like state, where she's basically in a comatose state. Then after that we find out that Professor X's friend from the UN and the government. Professor X's UN friend and government friend has been working with Bastion and Mr. Sinister. And again, just like Barbara Trask Professor X's government friend slash UN friend, just like Bolivar Trask, had no idea of the damage of the catastrophe or the degree of catastrophe the attack on Kenosha would have, thanks to Bastion. And just like Bolivar Trask, just like our good friend Bolivar Trask, she feels this. She is wearing a coat of guilt. Not only your typical coat of guilt, but I would call it super just a very depressing form of guilt. And by this time, guys, we also find out that Magneto is alive. Yes, that Magneto, that Eric Magnus Magneto is alive. That he didn't die. That he didn't blew himself up when he turned himself into a magnetic energy bomb at when the attack on Kenosha was happening. So with that being said, the only person that died of the team was, of course, Gambit. But anyway, going back to Magneto. We see Magneto alive, and he's basically hanging on an apparatus that has him stretched out, basically, he's being crucified without the nails, and he has his controlling his power his the unpopular mutant just basically the mutant power down collar that we first saw in episode 1 when Roberto was being treated badly by the anti-mutant group, People of Liberty. But anyway, so we see Magneto naked in a crucified. His body is in such a way that it looks like he's being crucified. Again, without the names. And of course he has the collar that stops him from using his powers. And 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 then we have then Professor X's government friend slash UN friend as well says to Magneto, while he's just hanging on the wall again with his collar on. She's basically saying to Magneto, you were right. You were right all along. You were right along. You were right. You were right all along about us humans. And now I see why you think that. Because if it wasn't for us, if we were able to accept you, if we were able to accept your kind, meaning the X-Men and all mutants and all the mutants around the world, all the mutants across the world slash across the board, we wouldn't have crazy people like Bastion and I implicate myself as well to destroy our Earth. And now that I see the pitfalls of my association with Bastion and Mr. Sinister, you are right to be mad with me and with all of us with all of us of humanity. But now we need your help and the X-Men's and your X-Men's help. Meanwhile, as this intense conversation is happening, as this intense speech is happening, is being given by Professor X's government friend slash UN friend. Cable aka Nathan, his father Cyclops, and Jean have located where Bastion grew up and to gather some clues and find find a way to stop him. And guys, this is where it gets a little bit creepy. But I'll get to that here in a little bit. So, as Cyclops and Cable and Jean are just looking around for clues about Bastion and how to stop him at the same time, they come across Bastion's mother, Mrs. B. And Mrs. B tells them the whole tells them Bastion's backstory, his origin story. And basically Mrs. B says that Bastion one day when he was at school /homeroom at school, he had been having visions he had been having telepathic tele, 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 telepathic or uh, telekinestic visions of machines, of machines, of machines, which were or are visions of sentinels, and he saw a future version of himself as being the connection, as being the cerebral cortex of the sentinels, meaning the leader of this future army or future peloton or future company of sentinels, and I, and since I, Mrs. B, just saw a poor little kid struggling in his home country of, guys, I'm going to say somewhere in Russia. Mrs. B told Cyclops and Cable and Jean that she saw poor little Bastion struggling in school and socially because he had this telepathic power, mutant power, and he had this other power that made him have visions about his future self and basically commanding a future sentinel army, and I took him in and adopted him. So when I adopted him, he gave me a hug, and after he gave me a hug and his eyes weren't white and clear and brown, black or brown. I want to say they were glowing pink, a pink light, and that's when I knew that Bastion wasn't your typical mutant boy. The pink light gave me the inclination that I need to protect my son from himself, and need to get him help. Some help to get his mind disconnected from this future vision of his of himself in the future, controlling or commanding commanding a a sentinel army. Then after the backstory, all of a sudden, Mrs. B or Mrs. Bastion just becomes erratic. She curls up into, she basically turns her back to cable and Cyclops and Jean. Then when all three of them are like, Mrs. B, are you all right? We find out that in fact Mrs. B is actually a zombie sentinel, and she has the same characteristics that Bolivar Trask showed when he turned into a zombie sentinel. And of course Jean and Cyclops and Cable had to just basically fight Mrs. B, and they did a pretty good job. But what they didn't account for, or what they didn't expect, is that across the world, or across the pond, or across the world, other zombies, other ordinary people, just like Mrs. B, were turning into zombie sentinels, and a group of these ordinary people came to aid Mrs. BZ or Mrs. Bastion Zombie, and basically help her destroy Cyclops Cable and Jean. Meanwhile, at the same time, at the X Mansion, the same thing was happening at the X Mansion. Ordinary people had come in, had turned into zombie sentinels, and basically destroyed the X Mansion to pieces. But thankfully, and they tried, Nightcrawler and Wolverine were there to try to stop. We're trying to stop that group of ordinary people. Now, sentinel zombies from destroying the X Mansion even more. But not only that, they were not only protecting the X Mansion, they were also protecting sleeping Rogue, because yes, Rogue had not woken up, because again, she was in a sleeping beauty comatose, or in a coma, an induced sleeping coma, So both Nightcrawler and Wolverine were not only protecting were protecting the X-Men from getting destroyed even more, or to be destroyed beyond repair, but they were protecting Sleeping Beauty, meaning Rogue. And not only that, and they weren't the only ones that were shocked by this group of ordinary people turned into zombies. Beast was shocked was given the shock of his life, because his reporter friend, his friend from the news, or reporter friend from the news, had become a sentinel zombie too. So both Hank, aka Beast, was hiding or protecting himself in a corner, and hiding from, or hiding from, just in pure shock, and just trying to protect himself in his lab. Then after that scene, we cut. Then after that scene, we see, or we finally get a glimpse of what's been going on with Jubilee and Ricardo, which they are in Brazil, and they are, and Ricardo and Jubilee are in Brazil at Ricardo's mom's house, and they're having a party, a gala, and another group of ordinary people turned into sentinel zombies come in and basically interrupt the party. And basically Ricardo tells his mom and Jubilee as well tells his mom with Jubilee as well that these sentinel zombies are here to kill us, are here to kill me and Jubilee. Then, but before that, Ricardo and Jubilee were at the mall in Brazil, and then all of a sudden, their fellow shoppers had turned into zombie sentinels, and they had to get out of there, out of the mall, and that's how they got it, and that's how they ended up back to Ricardo's mom's house. And tragically, this other group of sentinel zombies, or Bastion sentinel army sentinel zombie armed sentinel zombies were able to subdue both Jubilee and Ricardo. and they were, and both Ricardo and Jubilee were taken away. We're taken away by 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 the by this group of by this other group of zombie sentinels. Meanwhile, outside or down. Meanwhile, a few miles away from Mrs. B's house or community, below Cable and his dad Cyclops and his mom Jean, were trying are in a getaway car, not to get away, but just to not to get away, but just to gather themselves, just to gather themselves, just to come up with an idea how to stop the group of zombie sentinels that are following them and are trying to kill them. And so Jean and both Cable and Cyclops are driving a car when Cyclops comes up with a great idea, or comes up with a improvised plan. And the first thing he says, let's show these zombie sentinels that they shouldn't mess with the Summers, meaning himself, his son Cable, and of course his main squeeze, Jean. And they do a pretty good job. First of all, we see that both Cyclops and Cable are basically teaming up, and basically Cyclops uses his his X-ray vision that comes out of his eyes and his special goggles, and of course, Cable has his futuristic gun, and basically they team up. But Jean is driving the car that they're getting away from, they're driving their getaway car, not with her hands, but with her mind. Yes, she's Jean is kinetically or she's using her telekinetic powers, telekinetic powers to drive the car. And it's amazing, guys, and it's so cool. And at one point, the road that they're driving on, hits a dead end, and the only way to get to the other side of the road, or to get onto another surface road, is by jumping off of a cliff, jumping off of that dead end cliff, and that's exactly what they do. So, in an amazing feat of awesomeness, the car, Jean basically just hits the pedal to the metal, and basically the car jumps. I want to say 30 feet down, 30 feet, a 30-foot cliff down to the ravine or down the cliff, and meanwhile at the same time, Cyclops and Cable are just basically destroying zombie sentinels. So before the car makes a crash landing, Jean makes a telekinetic force field bubble to protect herself. Cyclops and Cable from dying in this flying car that is about to crash, and basically Jean saves herself. Jean saves herself. Her technically biological son, Cable, and her main squeeze, her main dude, Cyclops, from dying, and the runaway car explodes. Meanwhile, at the same time as Professor X's government friend / UN friend from the UN is finishing up her speech to a hanging Magneto. She does the unthinkable. She helps. She unhooks Magneto from the wall that he's hanging from, and then Magneto is like Magneto goes to the North Pole or Antarctica naked, and basically says, enough, I'm done. And Magneto turns the power off of his low power mode on, and he basically shuts the lights off the Earth, which affects all of Earth. But we in that same scene where Magneto, Commando Magneto turns the power off of Mother Earth, or of all Earth. We see a cameo of Peter Parker or Spider-Man, and a few other cameos. And so the world is just basically shut off. Bastion, and Mr. Sinister thought that they had conquered, had their plan, had planned a good plan to destroy the earth, but they discounted the anger, the sense of anger and vengeance of Magneto, and basically their plan went up in smoke. Both Bastion's and Mr. Sinister's plan. So, but that's not all, guys. To finish this awesome episode 8 of this part 1, to finish this first part of this 3-episode arc finale of season 1 of X-Men 97, after Magneto turns the power, after Commando Magneto turns the power off, we head back to the X-Mansion, and the X-Mansion is basically rips to shreds. Nightcrawler and Wolverine are just distraught and beat up when an unidentified ship comes crashing down to Earth, meaning comes crashing down to the living space or living room where Wolverine and Nightcrawler are surveying the damage of their battle with Bastion's Sentinel zombie army, and this ship contains, to their surprise and shock, happy shock, or both shock and happy shock, Father X, meaning Professor X. Then Professor X, seeing the damage that this Bastion dude caused with his zombie sentinel army, or group 1 or group 3 or group 4 caused to his home, Professor X gives a telekinetic phone call to a telekinetic phone call to all the X-Men, and says, "Come home, my X-Men." And that's how, guys, episode 8 of this 3-episode finale arc ends. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching this video. Leave a like and let me know what part of this episode 8 did you like, and if you were Magneto, and you were unhooked to the wall that you were basically hanging from, would you go commando, or would you be wearing something else? So thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, and I'll see you later. Bye.